All right, the next idea is the idea of multiples. Now, multiples, if you're thinking, well, is multiples the same as multiplication? Yeah, it kind of is. So when we're thinking about multiples, if for instance, if I say, let's list the multiples of the number 3. So I'd say the first one is 3. What would be the next multiple of 3? You would say, well, it's 3 plus 3, right? It's 3 plus another 3. I'd say, yes, that's exactly right. So 3 plus another 3 is the number 6. And then what would be the next value? What would be the next multiple of 3? So you would say, well, if I added another 3 to 6, then that's 9. Another 3 to 9 is the number 12. Another 3 to 12 is the number 15. I'd say exactly right. And I could continue this process over and over and over again. But these would be, if someone asked me, what are the multiples of 3? I'd say they are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. And I could keep going as long as they wanted me to do that. Now, I can do any multiple. For instance, if they asked me the multiples of 5, I would say, well, again, 5, then 10, then 15, then 20. So again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on forever. Now, one of the things that you might have experienced this on is something, if you've ever, most people might know something called skip counting. Now, skip counting is a way of thinking about multiplication. A lot of times, some students have trouble, like if I ask them, hey, what is 6 times 7? They'd say, oh, 6 times 7, I don't know. But then they would start telling me the multiples of 6, or they would tell themselves the multiple of 6 to come up with that value. So they'd go, well, let me see, I have 6, then 12, then 18, then 24. Let me start thinking about it that way. So that would be listing out the multiples of 6 if you're trying to use it as multiplication. Now, on the GED math test, when it comes to multiples, what you may see is something like this. You may see a series of numbers. And I'm going to just throw a number up here. And what you may have is they'll have 4 values or whatever. They have a list of numbers up there, and they're asking you, what number is missing in this list? Or what is the missing value? Your job is to figure out what number should be there based on the numbers that they've given you. So I already see that they've given me a 15 and a 30 and a 60. Now, your job is to figure out, what is that missing value worth? The clues are the other numbers. I always tell students, okay, when you're doing something like this, well, look at the first number. The first number is 15. Okay. Now, you're not really going to get too much information out of that number, single number, but you do if you think about the second number. So by going from the first number to the second number, I would say questions like this to students. I'll say, well, wait a minute. How many numbers do I have to add to the number 15 to get me to the number 30? So I would say like this, 15 plus what is 30? And students will say, well, isn't that another 15? Isn't that really 15 plus another 15? That gives me 30? And I'd say, exactly. And if that's true, we don't know if it's true, but if that is true, 15 or the 30 plus another 15 would get me where? We'd say, well, 30 plus another 15 gets you to the number 45. And I'd say, uh-huh. So if that missing number is 45, does the rule stay the same? Is the rule true? And what I mean by rule is this. If I add another 15 to that 45, does it get me to 60? And if it does, if I said, students, does it get 45 plus another 15 get me 60? And it'd say, yes, it does. I'd say, yes. Then that missing number is 45. And I'm sure about that because 15 plus 15 is 30, 30 plus 15 is 45, and 45 plus 15 is 60. Definitely that missing number is 45. Now, again, I didn't know that in the beginning. I had to test something. I had to figure out what was the rule. Now, you might hear it said spoken like that. Let's try it again. So again, they give me a series of numbers and then one is missing. And they'll say, what is the missing number? I have my three digits and my three numbers up there. What is the missing number? So again, you don't look at the last number because looking over here or starting here on the end is not going to give you any clues. You have to start with the first and the second number. So by looking at the first and second number, I'd say, I have the number 150. That's where I start. Then it goes to 300. So my job immediately there is to say, how much did I add to 150 to become 300? So I'd say, wait a minute. 150 plus, hey, is that another 150? Yeah. 150 plus 150 is 300. And I'd say, okay, so does that rule, and that's what they usually call this. And the rule is adding another 150. Does that rule continue to work? Is 300 plus another 150, I'm sorry, 450? And that answer is, yeah, that is true. So not only did 150 plus 150 give me 300, 300 plus 150 gave me 450. So you can also assume that that rule should be true here. So 450 plus another 150 gives me the value 600. That is my missing value. So when it comes to multiples, it can be shown in different ways. Here you were just adding 150, but it could be adding multiples of numbers. For instance, sometimes the rules can change. You may see patterns, and this is when we talk about patterned numbers. Multiples, I'm just going to keep real simple, but sometimes you'll see things called pattern numbers, and what you are is they're coming up with certain rules, like I double the number, then subtract two. I double the number, then subtract two. There can be lots of different rules, but when it comes to just multiples, we're just thinking of simple multiples. For instance, the multiples of, let's say 12. If I'd say list the numbers, the multiples of 12, you'd say, well, 12, 24, 36, 48, 60. I'd say exactly. Could I go on if I needed to? Yes, I could.